COE champion over everything.
Champion over everything.
Hey, what's going on, champions? Welcome to another episode of COE Champion Over Everything. I am your host, RJ Townsend. This is Black History Month, and I couldn't think of a better brother to bring on during this month than my brother, Tony Reimonenq Jr. And Tony, I appreciate you for coming on, man. How everything going today?
Man, it's going well. And Reggie, man, I thank you for thinking enough for me to have me on. And I'm excited to be on, man. I'm excited to share and then also hear what you have to say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And for those who do not know Tony is pretty much, he's the executive pastor at West Point Baptist Church. He is the spiritual advisor to the president of the National Bar Association, as well as he's the director of economic uplift for the National Bar Association. He's also the director of Link Up Economic Empowerment. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is economic empowerment, Black history, carrying on the work of those that came before us. And we're going to talk about a few of those people in just a moment. But before we do so, Tony, I got to give you the podium so you can share your champion story.
Wow, man, champion story. Well, just let me tell a little bit about myself. I don't know how much of a champion story it is, but just let me share. I'm the oldest of 18 kids. All right. I grew up in a household with 11 of them, raised by a single mother. So things didn't come easy. I graduated high school. And I graduated high school kind of behind the curve financially, and just trying to figure things out along the way. I was a father at a young age. 19, I had my first child, and we just trying to figure things out and being told no a lot. Trying to get things for that child, trying to secure shelter and transportation and jobs and. I was told no a lot because I didn't have the credentials, so to speak. I didn't have the credit score, so to speak. The credit score was already jacked up by that time. Look, mama had already used that, to get her through. Yeah. And so man, by the time I started figuring things out, I just kind of became a sponge to try to figure this thing out called life. Just from poverty to a decent life now, and none of that would happen without God. So to try to condense all of that into this timepiece without taking up a lot of time, so basically came from nothing. God saw something in this guy who came from nothing, and then allowed him to get something.
Awesome. And I've been knowing Tony maybe since like 2003. And when Tony talks about, overcoming and some of the things that he's had to endure, I know, Tony, you are an entrepreneur, right? You started out as an entrepreneur, you and your wife owning a few different businesses. So tell us about that journey and what that looked like for you.
Well, man, I'm glad you asked that. So coming up, man, I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, the 9th Ward, right? So mom and dad separate, mom moves to Bassfield, right? And I come to Bassfield and man, right around the time where the crack era had hit. And I don't know if you know anything about the history of Jefferson Davis County, but it was capital, like it was categorized or had that staple as one of the drug capitals. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in there right during that time. So just like, a lot of us, young Black men, I took to the streets to hustle a little. And man, seen a lot out there. Seen one story, man, seen a guy get shot at close range and thought he was gonna die because I didn't do the shooting, but I was there with the guy who did it. Didn't know it was gonna happen, man. Light flashed right before my eyes, like just in an instant, man. Like out there, like the Wild Wild West, right?
Yeah.
Was facing some possible jail time if that guy could have identified me at the scene. And so it was crazy, man. And so that's in my younger years. I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Also with that, man, my grandfather, man, who I just loved to death. I learned a lot from him, and he's a Army veteran, and he was paralyzed, and it was my duty to take care of him. And so, in addition to trying to be a good oldest brother to keep my wicked ways out of the eyes of my family and my siblings, because a lot of them didn't really know what I was into, and because I wanted to be a good role model for them as well. Wasn't nothing I was proud of what I was doing, but I was just trying to make a way, so to speak. And but then I was taking care of my grandfather, and man, he was. If I even rewind even further back, man, I was in the 4th grade, like taking care of my grandfather who was paralyzed, and if he needed to use the restroom in the middle of the night, that was on me.
Yeah.
So I would get up as a 4th grader and help him out of his bed, put him in his wheelchair, roll him to the bathroom, and help him get on the pot. Sometimes he would miss the pot. I had to clean that up.
Yeah.
And this was sometime in the wee hours of the morning. I had to do that, get back in the bed, and get up and go to school. And so that taught me responsibility. It taught me really not to make excuses. And so you take those kind of life experiences, man, and I found myself outside of high school as a young parent, as I stated earlier, and needed something to happen, man. Didn't really know God like that. And I started to apply some of the things that came natural to me, just like in the workplace. And none of that was working. My wife ended up going to cosmetology school. So I said, man, this got to be it.
Yeah.
She got the skill set. I got a little bit of knowledge of how to, move a product and move a business. And,
Right.
And then, advent of going to read and how to make a business plan, man, wrote a business plan. And God blessed that thing. And we started out with a $15,000 loan from the SBA, opened up a salon inside of our house first.
Okay.
We added on to the side of our house. And man, that thing kept growing, and it kept growing, and kept growing. We moved out the house to a commercial building, then from one commercial building to another. Then we finally bought our own building, and the rest is history.
Oh, wow. Wow. The entrepreneurial hustle, man. Oh, man, I love it. I love it. So Tony, man, I see you got the Master Crunch back there in the background. You got the Hootie Hoos, man. Master P inspired, brother. Man, what does that mean to you, man? That brother is awesome, man. What does it mean to you?
Well, man, I'm glad you asked, and I have him back here, man. We're in February, Black History Month. And if there's anybody who represents Black history and need to be celebrated, it is Master P. But man, he's always inspired me. And so these cereal, I came across them. A friend of mine gave them to me a while back, and I keep them out because they're inspirational. And they're inspirational because when I think of Master P and his story, coming from extreme poverty and violence and murder all around him, for him to be who he is today, worth hundreds of millions of dollars rather, that's inspirational. It reminds me actually of a scripture when Jesus, or God rather, through the prophet Isaiah says, I'll make a way in the wilderness, and I will make rivers in desert places. And I think about his life. You think about a desert, there's no water in a desert, or it's very hard to get to water in a desert. And so it's in a dry wasteland, but in the middle of it, God said, "I'll put a river in the desert." And so when I think of Master P's story, I think about that because coming from a desert place.
Yeah.
Right? He's definitely brought water to a desert place, and so I think if God did it for him, he'll surely do it for me and everybody else like me, who has little but trying to turn their little into something much. So it's the inspiration. So I look at it every day to be inspired.
Yeah. And man, like you said, that brother has an incredible journey because, I mean, he took an inheritance, from his granddad in order to start what most people don't know if they've never watched like the documentaries or followed it. I'm sure like how we follow them back in the day. It started out as a record store, a Black-owned record store. And, I remember you telling me a little bit too about Black-owned businesses. Talk about the shirt that you got on as well, brother, because I know that's a Black-owned business as well. Can you elaborate on who this particular artist is?
Yeah, the designer, his name is D Brown. We refer to him affectionately as Lil D. And Lil D is he's in his early 20s, and this shirt, his brand is called Loaded, and Loaded, is prosperity, and so he's promoting that idea, that form of thinking. And just on a side note, man, his dad, who is D Brown Sr., is the largest African-American real estate developer and private partnerships in the world.
Wow.
And his company,
not just the U.S., but in the world.
In the world.
Wow, that's amazing.
In the world. And he's doing some major things. And so it just makes sense that his son, is following in his footsteps to be a entrepreneur. And so just, in the month of Black History, man, just showing love to these brothers who trying to make a way not only for themselves but for people around them, jobs for people, and just stimulating the economy as well, as they bring in quality products to it, and really to lift our culture to a higher state of consciousness too.
Yeah. And
so
that's definitely needed, man. We got to move the culture forward. So I'm glad to see that you're highlighting two brothers that are definitely doing that. Yeah,
no doubt, man. I just appreciate you and in this podcast giving us voices to echo throughout our community, throughout the nation.
Yeah.
Tell them who's gonna watch this, man. There's somebody right now. There's some young Reggie listening to this who ain't became Reggie yet.
Right.
There's some young Tony who's listening to this who ain't really became the older version of Tony yet. And this might be just what they need to hear in order to get that spark, just to keep going another day. And who knows where they'll end up. So blessings on you, bro.
Yes, sir. Once again, appreciate you for coming on, man.
Champions, I hope y'all enjoying this week's episode of the COE podcast. But we got to take a quick break to acknowledge our sponsors. Aspire Pure, a premium ionized alkaline 9.5 pH plus water. That's a mouthful right there. That has a proprietary UV and ozone treatment to give you the smoothest and purest taste with every bottle. When I say smooth, I mean smoother than even me. So check out their website, www.aspirapura.com, and use the code COE10 to get 10% off your order. That's Aspire Pura.
Smoking Charlie barbecue, where you wanna eat.
Yeah.
60127 1633.
Take that.
Smoking Charlie's barbecue, where you wanna eat.
Smoking Charlie.
So good.
Come on now.
So good.
All right, so part of why we're here today, we're here to talk about economic development and being Black History Month. You know, thinking back to brothers like Marcus Garvey, thinking about Dr. Martin Luther King, and then thinking about Frederick Douglass, some of the work that they started. I know a part of what you're doing now, you're continuing to build on that legacy, right? Can you speak to that for me?
Yeah, man. So the interesting thing to me is when Dr. King fought to sit at the front of the lunch counter, and when he fought for us to have the right to sit at the front of the buses, he fought those fights and he got some opposition, right? Mm-hmm. But later on during the civil rights movement, Dr. King got this epiphany, and he realized, hey, we've been fighting for the wrong thing. We should have been fighting for economic empowerment and economic equity. So he shifted his focus. And when he shifted his focus to wealth redistribution in America, he was eventually killed. Like almost on spot. Before he can even get that movement off the ground, he was assassinated. And so every time there's a redistribution of wealth effort on a mass scale, those leaders' lives are in jeopardy. And maybe one day my life would be in jeopardy if it gets large enough. I don't care. I think we all put here today. We're dying anyway. Like right now we're talking, we're dying.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So, but to answer that, man, Marcus Garvey, I just learned that during his time period, he raised one of the largest amounts of capital that an African American man could raise during his time period, and he raised the money, I'm told, to purchase ships would transport African Americans or Blacks back to Africa. And but his movement was short-lived. And so me and people like me, I believe God has deposited that same type of spirit in us during the time period.
Yeah. And it's definitely something that's needed, man. And I heard you teach a few nights ago, man, and you were talking about the community of Greenwood. I'm being from Greenwood, Mississippi. I immediately, as soon as you said Greenwood, I started thinking about Tulsa and what we used to call the Black Wall Street. And you know how a lot of people started to come to that area because they were looking for that economic freedom, so to say, the economic equity. What is your take on the events that surrounded Tulsa during that particular time, and how we can now start to build our own Black Wall Street in the modern day and age?
Man, that's a good question, man. You well studied, brother. So let me tell you. So here's my thoughts on that, man. So I believe it was in 1906, where it was first discovered that Tulsa had oil. Mm-hmm. And that word got out and everybody rushed towards Tulsa. Blacks, whites, everybody trying to create this better life to take advantage of this newly found oil. Well, by 1908, I believe, man, Blacks in 1908, everything settled. Blacks had settled about in 40 square blocks of Tulsa. And get this, so from 1908, I think, to 1913, I believe, Blacks had amassed about 600 small businesses in 40 square blocks. They had movie theaters, they had law firms, they had hospitals, they had barbershops, they had salons, they had clinics, they had planes. Brothers back in 1908 had private planes They had a bus system in place, right? Watch this. In just, I think, 13-year period before it was actually burned down to the ground, right? The majority got jealous. How could this black man have more than me?
Mm-hmm.
So they fabricate this story and they burned it down, right? So, and then you fast forward now to 100 years later, when you have some racism today, but it ain't like it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
And now the wealth of African Americans is reduced. So how we live in a more advanced society with less obstacles and less racism, and we have less.
Mm.
So our net worth is dropped to about maybe $6,000, right? Mm-hmm. And the average white person's net worth is about $100,000. You see that big difference?
Right.
Now, and you ask, okay, well, why is that so? They said, well, black people, we like to wear our wealth, right? We like to buy the most expensive cars. We like to fly. We like to stunt, right? Mm-hmm. And that's true to a degree, but that's not the only reason why.
Okay.
There were some things put in place by the system to intentionally keep black people from amassing wealth, right? So they said, we're going to create opportunity for everybody to buy homes except for black and brown people. So when it was time to qualify for loans, we would never get qualified for the loans, for the homes. And then when we did qualify, they gave us predatory loans. Mm-hmm. And so they took advantage of the situations. And I mean, look it up. You can go Google, right? You can find these are facts. They had, Wells Fargo was just sued 2 years ago for this, redlining.
Yep.
Right? Bank Corp South, the bank was sued within the last maybe 10 years for this. Right? So redlining. Then we went to the Jim Crow era. So it was things strategically put in place to keep a mass amount of us from excelling. Mm-hmm. But in spite of that, still 40% of African Americans own homes. That's not enough.
Right.
But with all of that in place, we still found a way to buy homes. But the wealth gap is still lopsided. There's still a disparity. And that's where my organization come in, Linked Up, Economic Empowerment. And organizations like mine. I'm not the only one doing it. You know, I was inspired by brothers that was doing this, you know, before me. So I'm just trying to do my part in my part of the world, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You know, and connecting with brothers like you and other local brothers here in this community to make sure we do our part in closing the wealth gap. It's our responsibility.
Yeah.
See, once I know better, I want to give what I learned to somebody else. I'm not hogging. You know, so one of the things as an investor, Linked Up is an organization, and our vision is to close the wealth gap. Our mission is to do that by leading with financial education, providing opportunities for home ownership, entrepreneurship, and access to mainstream banking. So as an investor, I invest in real estate. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I do to help close that wealth gap, I don't just sell the people, I sell houses. I sit down with them and put them on a wealth plan. Because some of them got the job or the income because they are entrepreneurs, but can't quite verify what they need to verify to the bank. So I put them on a wealth plan.
Okay.
And in 18 months to 24 months, you own this house outright. I'm gonna show you what to do, how to walk you to the bank to get what you need. So that's my passion, man. Stemming all the way back from the Greenwood thing that you led with.
Yeah. You answered a few questions within that one, so I appreciate that. But you did mention the financial education piece. And I know right now you've been doing something locally here within 2 counties. I know we kind of spoke offline about the total reach for the state of Mississippi. The goal is to hit all 82 counties. But tell me about what you're doing in the current educational system to provide financial knowledge to our young kids that's going to help them and also help their parents, because a lot of the kids are going home with what you're teaching and they're teaching the parents. But speak to that for me, brother.
Yeah, man, I am so proud of that initiative, man. So God blessed us to get into the Hattiesburg school district. And our first school is Rowan Elementary School with the 5th graders, right? And so our sponsor, Community Bank, man, that bank, that if that bank really believes in investing into the community. They move a lot of the red tape and stuff to make it easy to bank with them. And so they came on board to help sponsor what it costs to get this into the school system. And we did our first lesson last week at Rowan. And man, we taught them the first G to growing wealth. And that was really getting out of debt. Now, most of them don't have debt. Right. So we talked about it from a preventative way of getting to prevent them from getting into debt. And man, they were like sponges. They soaked that game up. And they had questions, and a lot of the kids, and most of these kids, man, are from underserved communities, and they come from some of the harshest conditions. And to see them come bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to learn that. And when I asked them, like, if you had all the money you could have right now, $1 million, what would you do with it? Man, those kids, the first thing they said in their own way, one young man said, I would buy a house and I would move my family in it. And I would pay all of the bills because I don't want to see my mom struggle anymore. And so to hear things like that, just kind of, just warmed my heart and made me want to show them how, because that is possible for him to do. Mm-hmm. That is very possible for him to do if he started right now with applying these principles, life-changing principles. By the time he's 21 years old, he probably could do that. Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's awesome.
So let me say this as well. So we got into the Hattiesburg School District. We're going to be in Jeff Davis County soon. Okay. We got the green light for Grenada. And so, that's 3 counties right there already. And so three counties in climbing. And so we're looking to come to all 82. So if somebody's listening and you're a school administrator, or you got the hookup in your town, you want to see people in your town change and shift the way they think about money, and you want to give back to this next generation, I want you to reach out to me, and we can partner up and get to your county. Let me say this, Reggie.
Yeah, go ahead.
So more than money, what this does, man, this gives a kid confidence. Mm-hmm. See, most of the time we lose in life because we're just unsure. And because we're unsure, we don't say anything. And because we don't say anything, we don't get anything. Mm-hmm. And because we don't get anything, we end up with no thing. And so confidence, as a man leading his household, the first thing we need as men is confidence. And what helps me with my confidence is when I'm competent. So competence helped me be confident. Mm-hmm. So if I can give you these tools to wealth where you ain't guessing about money, and you walk home, you walk in the house, it's a different way now. because a vision for that house. When you walk into the bank, you ain't walking in the bank no more, begging for anything. You're able to state your case why you need this money. Mm-hmm. So that gives you a sense of confidence, right? And it also gives a sense of what I would say continuity. It puts husband and wives on the same page. See, if a husband has the vision, a wife don't mind following. And if a wife, is better with money, she might have the vision for it, and the husband ain't gonna mind following her in that area. Right. So it brings continuity. It makes us talk instead of avoiding talking to each other. Mm-hmm. So we get that confidence, man. We get that continuity, and then I said we get consistency. All right. So it's bigger than money. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So we get consistent in a trajectory of building a financial plan that's going like this. It's not that up today, down tomorrow, up today, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bill next month. Imagine a life like that when you ain't got to wonder how you're going to pay your bill next month. Mm-hmm. In fact, imagine a life you ain't got to worry about the whole year how you're going to pay that bill. So this is bigger than just about money. It's about confidence. It's about reducing anxiety, reducing blood pressure, giving you that sense of freedom. You ain't scared to answer your phone when an unknown number popped up because you think it is a bill collector. Man, I've been there.
That's real. That's real.
I've been there.
That's real, brother. Hey, brother, I appreciate the way you broke all that down. And let me ask this, because the goal is to get into 82 counties in the state of Mississippi, right? How, outside of getting in contact with school administrators and things like that, how else can the community help support what you're doing right now?
Well, man, I'm glad you asked. So this is a nonprofit. So to keep the services free, I have to raise my own money. Okay. And one of the ways I raised my own money is I sell these shirts. It's called 4G Wealth. In fact, you're wearing one, so I appreciate you. Yeah. That means you don't, because of your donation, you got that shirt, and I can continue this work for free. But 4G Wealth, right? And 4Gs of wealth is to get out of debt, right? Grow your credit score. Then you have to generate wealth and give back, right? Okay. And so in order to help you do that, here are the things that build wealth on the back of the shirt. We have good credit, businesses, properties, deeds, and stocks. And so I promote, so to answer your question, people make donations. The shirts are $20. And if a person want to make a purchase, they can just cash at me at $close the wealth gap. There's $CLOSETHEWEALTH gap, close the wealth gap. And so you can donate that. It's a tax write-off for you. Also, you can sponsor a school. Like right now, the curriculum that I'm using, it's a video-based curriculum. It's very expensive. It costs $2,000 for that curriculum. Yeah. And I get it directly from Dave Ramsey, the Dave Ramsey organization. I'm a master certified financial coach with Dave Ramsey. And so, $2,000 would sponsor a school. You don't have to do the whole portion of that. Any amount helps with that. So that's how a person can be a part of this movement without actually going into a school themselves. They can just donate and we'll do the work.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So what are some current challenges that you all are seeing as an organization, as far as economic development, people that you're reaching out and teaching and then retaining that information or carrying that information on to others? What are some challenges you're seeing right now?
So one of the main challenges, man, we live in the Bible Belt, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a misconception of money when it comes to the Bible, and most Christians that were raised in the Bible Belt, they have a they create a dichotomy between money and God. They say stuff like, I'd rather be broke and have God than to be rich and without God. Well, duh, it don't have to be either or.
Right.
What about have God and have money?
Yeah.
Why it has to be a dichotomy? Why you have to make the person with the money the evil villain or somebody who cheated to get that, right? So that lets me know that Bible literacy is at an all-time low too. Because if 39 of Jesus's parables that he told, 11 of them was about money. Right.
Yeah.
And when you look at the parable of the talents, we learn 4 things in that parable. You look it up, Matthew 25. There's a manager who goes away on a long trip. Before he goes away on the trip, he calls 3 of his servants and he gives them talents according to their abilities. Then he goes away and he comes back, right? So what in that parable, the manager represents Jesus and the servants represent us.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when Jesus decided to tell that parable, before he started telling, he was asked a question. And the question he was asked, what is heaven like? So when he asked what is heaven like, he started telling the parable about money. Why? Because the same principles that take to manage money is the same principles it takes to manage your spiritual life. It takes discipline, discipleship, discipleship. They go hand in hand. So usually a person that's good with money is a disciplined person, a discipled person in their thought process, right? So if you can handle money, you can handle your life. And so that's why they're inextricably linked. And so when Jesus tells, what do we learn about the parable? That number one, all wealth comes from God, because the manager gave the talent. Then we learn this, that the wealth is given to everybody according to their abilities.
Yeah, you got to steward well.
And then we learn this. We learn this. There's an expectation for you to make that wealth profitable to another level higher than which it was given to you. Because when he came back, the guy with the 5 talents gave him back 10. He said, well done. The guy with the 2 talents gave him back 4. He said, well done. The guy with the 1 talent tried to give him back 1. He called him wicked and lazy. So what does that tell me? That tells me that there's an expectation for me to be profitable with my life. There's an expectation for me to be profitable with what he gave me. And then the last thing we learn, when you're profitable, you can expect abundance. So here's what he did. He said, you're wicked. You didn't do nothing with yours. So let me take what you have and give it to the guy who had the most. So the guy who had the most now has abundance.
Right.
So usually a person with abundance is a sign that they are faithful, actually. It's a sign that they do have character. It's a sign that they are moral. It's a sign that they do have the best practices. And the person with the least, just maybe, they're the one that don't have the character.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones who come up with the excuses. So money and God is inextricably linked. Money is a tool that God gives us to fund his mission. So when you ask what the biggest challenge is getting people mindset to see that God is not mad at you for having money. God don't think you wicked for having money. It's just that when you put money before him becomes the problem. But what I'm teaching is that God first, any wealth you have, everything I got is from God.
Right.
So I can't brag on anything I have. Everything I got was given, right? But when God gives it, it's not that he just walk up to you and give it to you. He makes a way for you, but you got to go actually dig the hole. Just like with the children of Israel. He gave them the promised land, but they had to go fight it.
Right.
Just like in the desert, he gave them Jericho, but they had to go walk around the wall. So when God gives us something, it ain't like we just sitting waiting.
No, we got to act.
Yeah, we're working while we wait.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the biggest challenge, man, getting people who are super spiritual with no practical understanding to understand these principles.
So in essence, what you're saying is we got to be productive, right?
Yes, sir.
All
yes,
right.
sir.
So that leads me to my next question. 22 ways to be financially productive. I know right now you're doing some seminars, you're teaching the 4 Gs. You know, I was able to attend one of the first ones and very impactful information. I love the financial forensics that we're called to do for homework. But for those who are not aware of what you're doing, tell us more about 22 ways to be financially productive, what to expect from future seminars, and how they can be involved in that and how they can learn from it.
Well, I'm glad you asked about that. So 22 ways to be financially productive in 2022. So we started this movement or this initiative back in 2017. And I started out in the bank, doing it in a local bank. And the bank was so gracious to me and just gave me kind of free reign over everything there. And they were really gracious to the attendees to my workshops. And you know, and we would come see the information I share, man, requires you to do work and it requires discipline. So it's not popular, it's not sexy. So people are just not coming out in droves to that because it requires them to do something.
Right.
So only truly the people that's hungry comes out. So, you know, but we would have maybe 20, 25 people on a regular basis. And so now post shelter in place, we can go out now. I wanted to get out and from banks only to go to different churches.
Okay.
And so what you see, the event you attended was at South 28 Baptist Church. Pastor Picasso Nelson graciously opened his doors. And then we have some other churches that signed on board. I want to get into the rural areas and just come and give this free workshop and just teach people how to build wealth. And so one of the principles, man, we say in order to build wealth, you have to be, do, then have. Be, do, have. Be, do, have. But you know, us, we want to go straight to the have.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We want to go straight to the have. But we got to do, right? What habits am I practicing? Right? What strategies do I have? And see, that's not sexy, man. That makes you have to stop to think, right? And then, but even before you can do, you have to be, right? What's playing in the back of your head? What kind of advice that you got, from your upbringing? And see, sometimes, man, well-meaning people gave us advice that's just really ineffective, that it don't work. So, like, if I'm a father, and if I don't have any knowledge, but I love my kids, the only thing I can pass down to my kids is my lack of knowledge, no matter how much I love them. And so we got a lot of bad practices that's playing in the back of our head that's keeping us from being, that's keeping us from doing, and then that's keeping us from having. And so this church tour, I'm calling it, I want to get in all the rural churches, all across the state, all across neighboring states, where we can just preach the gospel of economic freedom and economic inclusion and economic equity. And so that's the movement behind 22 ways to be financially productive in 2022. So the time is now, which is why it's in 2022. Yeah. Here's the things you need to be doing right now. Practical ways. 80% of wealth, man, is amassed through real estate. And so I want to tell people how to do that. You know, you may have a bad credit score. You may be on a 9-to-5 that's not paying you like you want to be paid. But there's some practical things that I could teach you, that I could show you, that could help you improve your situation. And to the person who, you know, you're making, you know, 75,000, 100,000 a year, I can still show you some things to improve your situation. So it don't matter where you are, whether you got, you know, zero net worth, $5 a net worth, you know, 50,000 net worth, 500,000, 5 million for that matter. The principles are the same.
Right, right. Speaking of principles, as you was just talking and just breaking it down, I started thinking about I want to say 2 Kings 5:4, the story of Naaman leprosy, right? And you know, Naaman had to do a couple of things before he was able to get healed. He had to acknowledge he had an issue. So financially, we need to acknowledge that we have an issue. Naaman had to ask for help. So we have to ask others that are more knowledgeable than we are for help.
Yes, sir.
And then after Naaman acknowledged he had an issue and then he asked for help, he was given some clear directions on what to do. He had to act. So we have to act, and partnering with brothers like Tony Reimonenq Jr., partnering with, I had on the show brother Derek Barr, who's in finances. I plan on bringing a few other people who are giving you all some key information that's going to help revolutionize the way that you're living right now and change this, not only just for you, but for future generations. I need y'all to stick around. I need y'all to share this with your friends, share this with your family. And I know, you know, Brother Reimonenq has so much more that he can share on today, and we're coming to a close. But before we do so, Tony, I got to open up the floor to you and I just got to let you have it, man. You know, it may be some questions I didn't ask because I know there are some powerful things that God is doing in the kingdom right now. He's bringing people to the forefront like you to help bring his people forward. So, I mean, the floor is yours to add anything that I didn't ask.
Well, let me say this, man. I wanna challenge my brothers, my sisters to share what I'm getting ready to tell you. If we're not practicing it at the moment, I want us to start practicing it. And then after we practice it, I want to challenge you to share it with your children and your neighbors. And it's the 40-60 plan, right? When you think about your budget, right? You break the budget is 100%, and then you break that 100%, 40% one way and 60% another way, right? That totals up to be 100. So the first 10% of your income, give it, right? If you're part of a local church, tithe it. You're not a part of a church, give it to a nonprofit, right? I know one good one. That you could give that to, right? But if you're part of a church, tithe. It's the first 10%. The second 10%, save it. Like, pay yourself first. After God has blessed you, go ahead and break God off. Then go ahead and break yourself off before you pay anybody else. Pay yourself, right? Save that. Then the next 10%, invest it, right? Invest that 10%. And then that other 10%, making the 40, I want you to set that aside for recreation. I want you to have fun, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have fun while you're doing this, you're going to continue to do it. The other 60%, that's your living expenses, right? You live off of that. That's when you pay your light bill, your water bill, you know, your car notes, your house note, right? Live off of that. Get to where you can live off of 60%. And if you really get good at it, try to live off of 50. But I'm being generous by saying 60 right now. But follow that plan. Take that. It's easy. You can take that today. Like, that's the first way to be productive in 2022. Take what I just said, that 40-60 plan, right? Remember I said be, do, and have, right? So you got to be this first. You have to be confident. You have to be what God called you to be. Be confident in that. And now here's the doing. I'm giving you a plan to do. It's the 40-60 plan. And if you do that, you're going to have. So we do have. So that's my challenge, Reggie. I'm going to tell somebody else that tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to, I already taught it to my sons. And so now I got to teach it to my sons in the community. And then once I do that, then I've been responsible. So I'm asking everybody who's listening to be responsible. You know now, if you heard this, you know. So now you got to tell somebody.
Yeah. Tony, before we close out, one other thing, February 17th, right? February 17th, y'all lock that date in. Where do we have a location for where you'll be teaching the 22 ways to be financially productive?
Yes, that's South 28th Baptist Church here in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That Pastor Picasso Nelson is the senior pastor there, and we'll be there at 6 p.m. on February the 17th. Listen, it's also February is Black History Month, so you want to be a part of what Garvey started, what Dr. King started, that spirit, right? Mm-hmm. That fighting spirit, that no quit spirit. If our ancestors can amass the amount of wealth they had underneath the conditions that they were facing, I know we can do 10x what they done in the condition in this time. We just have to apply ourselves. We just have to stop looking for the next party spot, right? I mean, what is there to celebrate? Yeah. I mean, we losing. You know what I'm saying? Right. You celebrate when you win. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So this not sexy, but I promise you, it'll give you what you want, financial wise and also legacy wise. Because remember, it's bigger than money. Yes. It's the confidence that you get from this. You know, you walk in the bank a different way now. You say, look, I heard somebody say, I'm a baller now. I can walk a little taller now. If you want that to, you want to walk tall, come out on February the 17th and get this free game.
Hey, and y'all heard what he said, free game. I promise you, y'all do not want to miss this. Brother Reimonenq, man, I appreciate you for coming on. How can people that want to get involved contact you? But then those who want the knowledge, how can they follow you either on social media or email? How can they get involved with you, your nonprofit, and what you got going on? What are some ways they can contact you?
Okay. You can find me on social media at tony.reimonenq. That's on Facebook. And I am Reimonenq.Tony on IG. You can follow me there. You can also email me at trj@linkedupempowermentcenter.org. That's trj@linkedupempowermentcenter.org. And so you can find me there. I'm always looking for collaboration. I always say collaboration, all of us is smarter than one of us. So, we kind of exponentially multiply our thinking power and working power when we can collaborate together. So I'm looking to collaborate. Any banks out there, schools out there, other nonprofits out there. You name some brothers that I've already partnered with that's been on your show. So we just want to continue that partnership. So you can reach me there. Also, remember to donate. This is the only way we can keep it free. That's on Cash App right now is it's the $, and it's Close the Wealth Gap.
That's it. Well, champions, I appreciate you all for tuning in to another episode of COE, Champion Over Everything. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Reggie. Blessings.
Once again, thank you for tuning in to COE, Champion Over Everything. COE, we holding it down. 1.